So again, I'm going to talk about how to back up and migrate AutoCAD platform settings. This will apply to all the different versions of AutoCAD. If it has AutoCAD in the name, it will apply. So just a little bit of background about myself. I started with ATG back when it was I started with CADsoft Consulting in 2007, an Autodesk partner. I was doing sales for about 6 years. I took a bit of a break to go work for another construction cost estimating software manufacturer. Couldn't stay away too long though, came back to CADsoft in 2015. And of course in 2017, you all know ATG acquired CADsoft. And shortly thereafter, I moved on to our tech support team. And in 2019, they gave me the senior technical support specialist position. So that's pretty exciting. So I've got about 11 years of experience in the Autodesk world and 5 years doing technical support specifically, not including the support that I did for clients while I was on the sales team. And then, of course, I've got about 22 years of customer service experience altogether. So now that I've shown my age, let's move on to the reason why you're all here today. So our goal today is to talk about and discover the ways that you can back up and migrate any custom user settings. And so we're going to go over what type of data can be migrated, when it's appropriate to migrate, and when it's best to not migrate. And then we'll get into the specific scenarios and ways that you would go about backing up the settings. Some of those include automatic migration. You can make a zip file of your custom settings. You can export and import AutoCAD profiles. And then, of course, you've got your CUIX and your support files, which we'll get into a little bit later. And then we're going to wrap up today with a backup plan if migrating settings doesn't quite get you where you want to be, and then we'll do some question and answer at the end. So we're going to talk about now what type of custom user data can be migrated. So when we talk about the AutoCAD profile, we are talking about support files, printer files, trusted locations, auto-save locations, and then other preferences on the screen, your display options, your user preferences, your drafting settings, your selection settings, open and save options, all of that stuff that you customize in the options menu, all of that stuff stays with the AutoCAD profile, the ARG file. And then when we talk about the user interface, the CUIX, this is where we're talking about the way that AutoCAD looks in terms of your workspaces. All the toolbars, the ribbon customizations, your commands, keyboard and mouse customizations, that type of stuff lives in the CUIX file. And then we also have support files, including the ARG and the CUIX. But then we also have hatch patterns and plot pen styles, plotter setup files, things of that nature. So moving on, now we're going to talk about the distinction between version and release year, because I'm going to be talking a lot about this. So I just want to go over that real quick. AutoCAD versions include AutoCAD, AutoCAD Architecture, AutoCAD Civil 3D, and so forth. You can see the examples on the screen. When we talk about release years or release, we're talking about the actual year that you're working with, AutoCAD 18, AutoCAD 19, AutoCAD 20. So now we're going to talk about when it's a good idea to migrate and when it's a better idea to not migrate. So if you're customizing your AutoCAD options menu, your toolbars, if you have Lisp routines, custom hatch patterns, keyboard shortcuts, all the stuff you see in that top section, that would be a good example of when you might want to migrate your data. If you don't have any custom settings that I've mentioned, it's probably better to not migrate data, and I'll get into that. Basically, when you migrate, you risk bringing corruption into the new version and release. So it's better only to migrate the stuff that you need to migrate. And some of the situations where you would want to migrate, we'll be going into these in detail on the later slides. So I'll be going over those on the next slides. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and dive right in now. An example here is AutoCAD 2019 is already in use on one machine, and you're installing AutoCAD 2020 on the same exact machine. So this lets you migrate your custom user settings from an older release year of AutoCAD to a newer release year of AutoCAD on the same machine. And this is the easiest process of all of them. I've recorded short videos of the demonstration so we could cut out some of the long stuff. So what you're seeing on the screen is I've just installed AutoCAD Architecture 2020. So the installation just finished up and I'm launching it for the very first time. The first video I failed to cut out the long pause, so I apologize there. So here is the migration utility that we're talking about in this situation. At the top, it's asking which version and release year you want to migrate from. It's saying, I see that you already have an older release year of AutoCAD Architecture on here. Which one do you want? So you pick the latest release year that was known to work the way you want. And then you just check and uncheck the boxes as needed. So if you don't customize content catalog, you probably want to uncheck it. If you don't have, existing templates, uncheck that. So anything that you don't need to migrate, uncheck, and only leave checked what you want to migrate. You'll notice there's buttons at the bottom, select all and clear all, which helps to make your selections. Once you've made your selections, you're just going to hit the OK button. And that's it for scenario one, where you're on the same machine and you're just moving to a newer release year of the same version of AutoCAD. So now we're going to go on to scenario two. Oh, quick note, if the wizard doesn't pop up or if it's accidentally skipped or you don't have the option, you can continue with the additional instructions that I'll show in a moment. Okay, so this is scenario two. The example here is, we're on a different computer, migrating to a different computer, same version and release year of AutoCAD. So AutoCAD 19 is installed on one machine, and we want to bring those custom settings into the same version and release year, AutoCAD 2019, on a second machine. So in this scenario, your best bet is to make a custom settings zip file. This lets you migrate your settings for the same version and release year from one computer to another. And it's also an excellent way to back up your custom data before you do a reset to default or a reinstall. So here's scenario two. Oh, I should mention, this option is not available for AutoCAD Map 3D or Civil 3D. So you'll have to use the manual instructions for that. So you'll see what I've done is I've clicked the Start menu and I've located the folder for AutoCAD 2020. And I'm going to say Export AutoCAD 2020 Settings. And then you'll get this dialog box. Just hit Export. And then find a location where you'd like to save it. Network drive is preferable where both computers can get to it. But if you don't have that, you can put a thumb drive in. So you give it a name and you save the file. And it's going to tell you that it's been successfully saved to your location, so you just hit OK. And you'll notice we now have a zip file. in our backup folder. And then what you want to do is copy the file and paste it to the new PC. So then once we're on the new computer, what we're going to do, obviously we download and install the same version and release here that's on the old PC. And we copy and paste the zip file onto the new computer anywhere we want. And for this process on the new computer, AutoCAD needs to be closed. Go to the Start menu, find the new version and release, open the folder, and click Import Settings. Then you're just going to locate the zip file from your backup location or wherever you pasted it and hit Open. And that imports the settings into the new machine. And it'll say it was successfully imported, and you just hit OK. And then at this point, you can go ahead and open AutoCAD and test it out to make sure everything looks good. So that is scenario 2. One quick note, this is not available on AutoCAD for Mac. So with AutoCAD for Mac, you have to go into the application menu and click Reset AutoCAD for Mac. Then you have to go into the folder where it makes a TGZ file, and you move that to the target computer, and then you extract that file. And then you put the files from the extraction into the new folder. So that's for AutoCAD for Mac. And of course, if the zip file doesn't work for you, then you want to proceed to the next scenario, which is more of a manual migration. So you've seen the 2 easiest ways. I always try these first if I fall into one of these categories. So now we're going to get into scenario 3. This deals with when you're moving to a different version and an older release here of AutoCAD on the same exact computer. So a couple examples, AutoCAD 2020 is in use, and you want to install AutoCAD Architecture 2020 or Map 3D 2020, something like that. Or another example, which is what I'm going to show you on the demonstration, AutoCAD Architecture 2020 is already in use, and you want to install AutoCAD Architecture 2019. Since you're going back a version, you're not going to get the migration utility, and the zip file is not possible either because it has to be the same version and release year. So when we start talking about this type of situation, we have to go for a manual migration, and this is where we're really going to get into the content here. This talks about manually migrating your profile and your customization file. So just like the other settings, the first step on the source version or release of AutoCAD, you want to start with the Windows File Explorer, and you're going to create a new folder in there called AutoCAD Backups. So this is the first step with all of these scenarios, of course. Apparently I was talking a little longer than I thought. Okay, so here's me creating the backup folder. And we're migrating AutoCAD Architecture, so I named the folder appropriately. Then we're going to go ahead and just open the source version of AutoCAD that you want to migrate from. And AutoCAD Architecture is open. We'll hit Start Drawing so we get more options on the screen. And you'll notice a bunch of toolbars and things that are customized here that look different than the out-of-the-box settings. What we're going to do here is go into the options menu. The big A in the upper left is the application menu, and in there is the options button. You can also type options in the command line and hit enter. What we're going to do here is create a brand new profile from the settings that are current right now. So to do that, we start by hitting add to list, and then we're just going to give it a name. I like to put the date in there as well. Once it shows up in the list, you're just going to highlight it and hit set current. It's going to regen the screen, but it's the same settings. And then with it highlighted, you hit export, find your backup location, and then you're going to name your new profile. It's an ARG file, as we talked about earlier. And hit save and apply. Now what I like to do after the profile is exported, just have a look at the Files tab. And then open up the Customization Files area and the main customization file. You're just going to observe where your main customization file lives currently and what it's called. So you'll see the path in there is C users, user ID, app data roaming, Autodesk, and so forth. The last thing at the end is the name of the CUIX file. So this is telling us that it's in the default location and it's called aca.cuix. So once we know that, we're going to go into Windows File Explorer and go to the folder. I did a little shortcut, %appdata% and hit enter, but you can also navigate through there manually. The app data is a hidden folder, so if you don't see the folder under C users, your user ID, you have to tell Windows to view hidden items. So view tab at the top, there's a hidden items checkbox that you can check. Or you could do app data, %appdata%, just to skip right in there. Roaming, Autodesk, ACA 2020, ENU, and support. This is where the customization file is living according to AutoCAD Architecture. And we're looking for the aca.cuix. That's the main customization file. So we're just going to copy that file and go to our backup location and paste it in there. Now what I'm going to do is rename it so that when we paste it into the live folder, we are not overriding the defaults. All right. So now that that's done, and also you can close AutoCAD at this point. All right, one more backup on the source version of AutoCAD. We're going to go to the C drive, Program Files, Autodesk, and then AutoCAD and Release Year. And then in this case, I'm migrating from AutoCAD Architecture, so I'll go into the ACA folder. And I'm looking for the DLL file that has the same name as the main customization file, aca.dll. So we'll highlight it, right-click, and copy. And then locate the backup folder, and right-click, and just paste that in. And then we're going to right-click and rename. And we're going to rename it the same thing as the main customization file, just a different extension. So that's all you have to do to make your backups first in the source version and release here. So now, because it is the same computer in this scenario, now we're going to start the migration process into the target version or release year. So we're going to start by copying the CUIX file from the backup folder. And then we're going to go to the app data roaming, Autodesk. And we're going to find the version and release year that we want to migrate into and open its support folder. I had a file in there called custom, so I just deleted it. Pretend that wasn't there. So we're in the support folder. We're pasting in the ACA custom.cuix. Okay. Then we go back to our backup folder. We grab the ACA custom DLL file. And we're going to go to the C drive, Program Files, Autodesk, and then release here you're migrating into AutoCAD 19, and then ACA, your version, and paste in ACA custom.dll. This makes the buttons on your ribbon have actual icons and not question marks. You have to have the DLL file in the Program Files folder for that version for your custom buttons to show up. So then we're going to open up the target version and release here and start a new drawing so we get a command line and some other options. And we're going to go into the options menu, and I'm showing you through the command line now. Options, enter. And then we're going to go into the Profiles tab, and we're going to import our ARG file from the backup. So you'll notice we're already in that folder. And so we'll highlight the ARG file that we saved and hit open and apply and close and highlight it. Watch what happens to my interface. Set current. Apply. Then we need to go to the Files tab. And we want to make sure that your support file search paths are correct. So some examples are making sure that the app data roaming is in there, program files and program data. For the specific release year, here's a trusted locations. This is where you want to put your Lisp routines and third-party apps. So just basically go through all these sections and make sure that everything looks good. I've given you on the handouts an example of where everything is supposed to be. What you're seeing right now is adding a new path to the trusted locations. We're pretending this is a Lisp folder. So all I did was I highlighted trusted locations and I hit add. Then I hit browse, found the location, and hit apply and OK. All right, so now we're going to go into CUI load. We need to load in our custom CUIX file. So to do that, we unload the current one, and then we browse. And we're going to go to the support folder where we pasted the custom file. And we'll just locate it and hit open. And then hit load. That's going to load it in. And now you'll notice my toolbars are back. And so that is how you manually migrate your settings if you're on the same release year. And you're on the same computer and you're migrating to a different version or an older release year. And now I'm going to show you scenario 4, which is a similar situation, but we're now moving to a whole different computer altogether. So this scenario here is sort of a catch-all for any type of situation that you may be in. So I always start with the zip file and the utility if I can, but if I don't have those options, what I'm going to show here in scenario 4 is the most complete way to migrate settings. So, the examples, of course, AutoCAD 2019 is on machine 1, and we want to put AutoCAD Architecture 2019 on machine 2, or even AutoCAD Architecture 2020. Another example, AutoCAD Architecture 2019 is on machine 1, and we want to install AutoCAD 2018 or AutoCAD Architecture 2020. There's all types of examples that we could go over. This is pretty all-encompassing. So as I mentioned, this will work for just about any version, release year, any computer you may want to migrate to. So what we're going to do here, we're going to obviously start on the source machine, working with the source version and release. Just like in scenario 3, we're going to start by going into the Windows File Explorer, and you want to create an AutoCAD backups folder on your network or a USB storage drive. So we'll pretend that this D drive is my network folder. So I'm going to go New Folder, and I'm going to make my backup location. I'm going to show Migrating Civil 3D this time, since I've already shown AutoCAD and AutoCAD Architecture. Now, since we're moving to a different machine, I'm going to grab the entire Autodesk folders. So you'll see me go into the App Data Roaming first. This is where the lion's share of your customizations live. And I'm going to right-click and copy the entire Autodesk folder and paste it to my backup location. If you're not decommissioning the old machine, you probably don't need to go to all this to this extent. But if you are decommissioning the old machine, it's a good idea to grab all the backups you possibly can before you decommission it, because you never know when you might need something or other out of there. So I'm copying the entire roaming folder. If you're going to keep the old machine, you can copy just your version and release year specifically out of App Data Roaming and paste it into the backup folder. And the same thing goes for the local folder that we're going to do next. Okay, so that is done pasting. Then I need to rename it to distinguish it from the other Autodesk file that I'm going to paste in. So I'll put the word roaming at the end and save. Now I'm going to go to the local app data folder. I'm going to use the shortcut, but again, you can navigate manually if you'd like. And the path is up at the top there. Once we're in app data local, again, I'm going to grab the entire Autodesk folder. I don't worry about the Autodesk _Inc., but you can back it up if you'd like. So I'll go to the backups folder and just simply paste it in. It's not as large as the roaming, so it's a little quicker. And after it's pasted, you're welcome to rename it if you'd like. It's not 100% necessary, but I'll do it just for demonstration purposes. So now we've got our local and our roaming for every version and release that I've ever had on this machine. So we should have plenty of backup files between those two. Now, if you have any other folders with third-party applications, Lisp routines, hatch patterns, plot files, fonts, go find those and paste those into the backup as well. You may have some, outside of the normal support locations. So make sure you grab your Lisp routines and your application folders as well. Once we've got those files backed up, we're going to go ahead and open the source version and release that we're migrating from. So in this case, Civil 3D 19. I'm going to start a new drawing so we get the command line and everything else. You'll see some customizations on here. And we're going into the Options menu, Profiles tab. And we're going to add a new one to the list. We're going to capture the profile that is current right now. So add to list. give it a name, and then hit apply and close. This should look pretty familiar by now. Then highlight it and set current. And then with it highlighted, hit export. Then you're going to find your backup location and give your ARG file a name. Hit save, apply. And then, of course, we are now going to go over to the Files tab and look at the main customization file again. So open customization files with the plus sign, open the main customization file, and we want to double check to make sure that the main customization files in the folder that we backed up. So you'll see app data roaming Autodesk, we grabbed the whole folder, so I'm covered there. But I also want to make note of the CUIX file name, C3D in this case. If you have a location here that's not a folder that you already backed up, then you're going to want to go to that folder in the Windows File Explorer and copy that and paste it into the backup folder as well. Since I've already backed it up, I don't need to do that, but just definitely noteworthy. Make sure you look and make sure you get all of your custom files out and into the backup, especially the CUIX. All right, then we can exit out of AutoCAD. And C drive, program files, Autodesk. We're going to go get that DLL file now. So we're going to go into the source release here of AutoCAD and program files, into the version folder, and then down into, in the folder for your release, find the main customization file. So we're looking for DLL. We're looking for C3D DLL. So right click and copy it, and go to the backups folder, right click and paste it. So we've got the CUIX in the roaming folder already, and then we just grab the DLL from the program files folder. And I'm going to do another step that's going to make my life just a little bit easier. First, I'm going to rename this C3D custom.dll. Then I'm going to go into the roaming folder, into Civil 3D 2019, the version we're migrating from, ENU support. I'm going to grab the C3D.cuix now. And I'm just going to make a copy of it. So we'll leave the original one in there. This is just to make things a little easier on myself when I'm migrating into the target machine. So I've made a copy of it, and I'm just going to paste it right here in the root of my backup folder. And then, of course, I'm going to rename it. I want it to be the same name as the DLL, with a different extension, of course. Perfect. So now we've got all of our backups on the source version and machine. So now we're going to pretend that we're on the target machine now. And we're going to pretend that we've already installed our newer version and release here on the target machine. So what we will start with on the target machine is go to the backups folder on the network or the thumb drive and copy the main customization file from the backup folder. And then we're going to go into app data roaming Autodesk. We're going to paste that into the support folder for the target version. So Civil 3D 2020 in this case. ENU support, And we're going to right click and just paste it in. And you'll see C3D Custom. Then we're going to go back to our backup location. And we're going to copy the DLL file. And then we're going to paste it into the Program Files folder for the target version and release. So C Program Files, Autodesk, AutoCAD 2020, C3D in this scenario. And we're going to right click and just paste that right in. And you'll see C3D Custom.dll in the list. So now we've got our user interface files pasted over. Now we need to paste over any additional folders that we backed up from the other machine. I'm going to go ahead and paste it into the app data roaming for the target version, just because AutoCAD's already looking in that folder for files. You can do this a different way if you'd like, though. Some people like to put it in a different location and then just go into the AutoCAD Files tab and tell it where that other location is. Some people do it that way so that when they go to a new release year every year, they don't have to copy the files into the new folder. So I pasted it into where it's already looking, but you can paste it somewhere else and then path it in there inside of AutoCAD. So now that we've got our user interface and our third-party application and list folders pasted in, now we're going to go ahead and open the target version and release here that we want to migrate into. So in this case, it's Civil 3D 2020. And when it opens, we're just going to go ahead and start a drawing. And we're going to go into the Options menu once again. And the Profiles tab, of course. And we're going to import this time. Go to your backup location. Highlight your profile and hit Open, Apply, and Close. And when it's in the list, hit Set Current. Okay. That gets all of your options dialed in. Then I'll hit Apply. Then we're going to go to the Files tab and once again take a look at all the paths. Make sure that everything is passed correctly for the right release year. Make sure it's seeing app data roaming and make sure it's seeing program files and program data. You can add any additional folders that you may have in here as well. If you want to add a path, you highlight the top and hit Add. And then when you've got the blank box, you can either paste a path in or you can hit Browse and find your folder that you want to add. And hit OK. And there it shows up in the list. And after you make any changes, you want to hit Apply. I'm showing the trusted locations, the support folder where I pasted the lists in. And this just shows you how to add that path in if needed. You've got some print file paths and some other things to look through as well. Again, I've given you a list of where everything lives on the handouts, which you can download through the chat at any point. Okay, so now that we've got our profile dialed in, we go into the CUI load menu, or dialog box, and we're going to find the current civil customization file and unload it. Then we're going to go ahead and load in our custom. So just find the file in the folder, hit load, and you'll notice my interface looks like it did in 2019 on the other quote machine. And so that is how that's done. And then, of course, you might want to go back, check your files paths again, test it out, make sure everything's working correctly. If everything looks and works good, you're good to go from here. But if you don't have the results that you're looking for at this point, there is a troubleshooting section that we'll get into in just a moment, just telling you some of the places to look if you have issues there. One other little trick that I've done for other people is it's an alternative option where if you're migrating to the same version of AutoCAD to a new machine and maybe just a newer release year, what you can do is just install the new product version and release year on the old machine. Then you can open it and use the migration utility from scenario 1 to migrate the settings into that new release year. So then you can export the zip file like you saw in scenario 2 for the new release year from the old machine that has your current settings. And then on the target machine, just install the newer one that you want and then import the zip file. So that is an alternative option if you are migrating to the same version of AutoCAD, just maybe a newer release here. Okay, so that's scenario 4. That's the biggest one. Scenario 5, we're just going to touch on real quick. Not a lot of people use this method because the registry scares people, but some of our larger clients do it this way and they love it. This is a good way to migrate to different computers, or maybe if you're needing to reinstall Windows or upgrade Windows, or move it to a new user profile. Maybe you're doing a reset to default on the program. So you can do some of that type of stuff with the registry as well. So here is the scenario 5 where we look at the registry method. So I go to the Windows Start and I type regedit, and then I open the registry editor. There are multiple ways to get into the registry editor. Once you're in though, go to Computer, HKey_current_user, and then Software, and then Autodesk, and then open AutoCAD. The R numbers relate to the release year. So R23 is 2019, 22 is 2018, 23.1 is 2020. If you open that up, you'll see all the different versions of AutoCAD that I have. In this case, there's Civil 3D 2020. This one is AutoCAD 2020. Here's AutoCAD Architecture 2020. Here's AutoCAD MEP 2020. So what you do, this is on the source machine or before you reset or move to a new profile or do the, whatever you need to do that's causing you to need to back up. Do this before you do it. You're just going to right click and export, and you're going to go to your backup folder and give it a name. Doesn't matter what you call it because it's going to know where it needs to go on the other side. So give it a name and hit save. So that exports the entire registry key. Then when you're on the new operating system or the new computer or the new Windows user profile, you can go ahead and find the backup location. And you can copy and paste the file from there onto the C drive, or you should also be able just to double click it and follow the prompts on the screen and let it import that into the new users registry. So that is how people migrate with the registry. Now here's where we get into some of the troubleshooting steps that I mentioned. If you run into any pitfalls in doing these procedures, check out the troubleshooting PDFs that I put in the chat. So some of the possible pitfalls that you might run into after you do the migration process, you might get errors saying your customization file or maybe print files can't be found after you import the profile. You might see that network paths are no longer on the same drive letter as before. Maybe your toolbars or menus or workspaces aren't showing up. Could be that your list routines or your command buttons or your third-party apps may not work. So stuff like that, if you run into any trouble, it's not quite working the way it did on the old machine or version, then make sure you go back over scenarios 1 through 5, do all of those directions. If that doesn't do the trick, then once again, go into AutoCAD, open your options menu in the Files tab, and verify all of the paths. You want to make sure that the files listed in any error messages you're getting are in the folder paths specified. So you have to go to Windows File Explorer and look for those, or you can do a search in the upper right of the Windows File Explorer. You also want to make sure, and if they're not listed in there, you want to put them in the folder, or you have to tell AutoCAD where they're living currently. So you can add the folder path to where they're currently stored in AutoCAD, or you can put the files in the folders where AutoCAD's already looking. Okay, next thing would be to check to make sure the drive letters listed and any network paths exist on the machine. So say you've got an H drive list routine in there. If you don't have an H drive on your computer, your list routines aren't going to work. So what you'd have to do is map that network content folder to a drive letter on your new computer. If possible, you want to choose the drive letter that AutoCAD is already looking for. But if that's not possible, then put any drive letter in there. Then you have to go into the Options menu, Files tab, and make sure it's looking at the location where it's actually stored. Okay, moving on. Also in the Options menu, Files tab, we need to make sure that the folders containing your list routines and any other third-party apps are in the Trusted Locations paths. I talked about this a couple of times. But additionally, you want to make sure in Windows that the files are in the location shown. So you have to open the location, observe where it is, and then go to that location in Windows and make sure that the files are there. Okay, the next thing to check for is that the folders containing any custom print files are listed correctly in the printer support file paths, and that your custom print files are in the location shown in AutoCAD. And also make sure the main customization file listed under customization files, make sure that's the correct one and that it's in the folder listed. All right, then check the CUI load command, which I showed you. Verify that the right customization files are loaded. If that doesn't get it, then try app load. With app load, you can load in your list routines and other applications. The extensions are shown here. And you can also click on the Startup Suite and add the lists to the Startup Suite as well. So that's another way to get lists working. Another alternative, some people like to do it this way, is to create an AutoCAD.lsp file. And you put the following code example in the file and save it. And then you would put that AutoCAD.lsp file in your AutoCAD support folder. So this is an example down here of what you would put in the file. Obviously, you would have to replace stair and walls with your actual Lisp file name. So that is another way to get Lisp routines working. Some other things to check would be open two Windows File Explorer windows side by side. You'll have the backup or the original roaming folder on one side for the source version, and then you put the roaming folder for the target version on the other side. And then you're going to need to look at all the folders and the files in both windows. And you can right-click and go into Properties and look at the size and the amount of files inside. If they match, then skip to the next folder and so forth. And if you're missing any files or folders in the live target version support folder, you'll want to paste those extra files and folders from the backup over into the target version support folder. And at that point, you'll restart AutoCAD. And then finally, you can also go into the CUI command and customize your user interface manually. This involves copying and pasting workspaces and ribbons and commands and things over from an old file into a new one. But that is an entirely separate webinar that I'll have to do later because it is just as involved as this particular one, and it's all about that one dialog box. So CUI command is ultimately how you customize your CUIX file to make sure it has all the buttons and commands and things that you want. All right, so now that we've talked about things to do in the event of a pitfall, you can see at the bottom here, there's a list of the default support file locations. So if your printing isn't working right, check the plotter sections. If the shapes aren't working right, check that, right? So depending on what the pitfall is, you might have to look in different sections. And at the end of the day, you can always call ATG. We include technical support at no charge over and above what you get from Autodesk as a thank you for doing business with us, and we're certainly happy to help. If you need us to customize your menus for you, we do that as a service, and we've got some of the best folks in the country. And if you're interested, you can speak with your account manager about services. We can make you custom menus and list routines or anything you may need to do. So keep that in the back of your mind as well. And if you ever want to go back to the out-of-the-box settings, you just go to the Windows Start menu, and you open your product version and release year folder. So I'll say, let's do AutoCAD Architecture. Well, I guess we're doing AutoCAD LT. Reset settings to default is a button in the menu. And then it's going to ask if you want to back up and reset or just reset. I always like to back up just because you never know. So I'll just put it wherever you want, give it any name you want, and it'll back up your settings before it does the reset to default. The reset to default isn't available for all products and versions and release years, as you saw. So if that happens, you can also reset by going into the Add and Remove Programs and locating it that way, and then do a change. And there's some options in there, repair or reinstall is another one. So that is what you do if you want to go back to the out-of-the-box settings. Finally, just a quick point about making backups after you're migrated. After everything looks correct, you want to go ahead and make new backups because you never know when you might need those. So just make a brand new AutoCAD backups folder and then make a zip file of the new custom settings. I showed that in scenario 1. And then you're going to create and export a new AutoCAD profile, just like I showed you in scenario 3. And then you want to back up all your app data folders for the new version and release year, like I showed you on scenario 4. Okay, so that's it for the demonstration. And now we'll go ahead and open the line for any questions. And you're always welcome to call the 800 number shown on the screen if you need technical support. The big one in blue is our technical support toll-free number. We've got a dedicated case coordinator who answers the phone and routes you to the next available rep. We sure do appreciate everybody's time today, and we absolutely appreciate your continued business. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.